Today, we're going to talk about our wedding night. Now get your head on straight. Get your mind up out the gutter because we're not going that far. However, we will talk about some of the things that,
You don't know how far we're going.
It's better with us two. We're better together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Better Together. This is the podcast about bridge building in every area of your life, and I am one of your hosts, Mina Brett.
I am also one of your hosts, Brydon Brett.
And we are better together.
Yeah, we are better together.
We are better together. We would not be as better if we were apart.
No, there's no way there'd be as much Brett if it was just one Brett, but it's two Bretts, so it's better.
It's better.
Yep.
Doesn't get any bretter. I mean, it does get bretter.
It could in some hypothetical situations.
Especially like at a family reunion. It gets very bretter.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I like your outfit.
Thank you. I like yours.
Thanks.
I like your sweatshirt. This is a good opportunity to plug some merch for The King Will Come. We're in a worship collective or collective. It's not a worship collective. It's a collective of Christians. Collective. That like to sing about our relationships with God.
Yeah. And
we have music out. We have multiple singles out. We will be putting our album out. And actually, the album might be out by the time this episode airs. Possibly. I don't really know how that works. But this shirt that Brydon is wearing is available on our website, thekingwillcome.com.
Yeah.
Go on over there, get you a sweatshirt. Is it available?
As of today, it's not, but it should be.
I didn't know.
It needs to be up.
Okay, if it's not available,
go there and check it out.
But look at it and be very amazed at how nice it is.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's merch specifically for our chart-topping song, Yet, and everybody's been asking for merch for a while, and so we're trying to meet those requests.
Yep.
And Yet is one of those fulfillments.
Yeah.
And so this is the sweatshirt.
Yep.
It's cozy. It's comfy. Understated. Says what it needs to say. And we hope that you guys like it whenever you do get your hands on it.
Amen.
As always, we invite you to like, comment, subscribe, and join in the conversation on social media. Follow us on social media. We're going on a cruise in February, so get on our website. Join in. Come hang out with us. It's going to be a good time, okay? And what am I missing? I'm missing a few things, huh?
Oh, no, not really. I think we're good.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm just chilling, man.
You're just chilling.
I'm just eyeing that watermelon Sour Patch.
It's strawberry, but
is it strawberry?
Yeah. Have you? Did that confuse your taste buds a little bit?
It did.
Yeah, that's why. Because it was strawberry.
Yeah. Okay.
You go ahead and take that. Take that right there.
Really?
Yeah. Take that. Take that strawberry Sour Patch.
It
matches.
Kind of.
I mean, the green, but the red matches.
That'll give me that sugar rush I need.
Yeah. You're a little low on energy these days, but it's okay.
It's okay.
I just really like doing this with you. It's kind of a break from all the other stuff we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all about bridge building in relationships and, in kind of the ethnicity area and faith, all of things. We build bridges in every area of life, and our mission is to make bridge building sexy for the first time ever. And we don't know if we're succeeding, but we're grateful you're here. And
God
today,
just told us to do this, man.
Yeah, he did.
Like, honestly, yeah, like even sharing our story, we're like, we wouldn't normally do this, but he told us to do it, so we just trust that by putting this out there.
And that's when we get the most engagement too, is when we talk about our story. People are just locked in when it comes to talking about our story. In our last episode, we talked about our wedding day. We talked about our vows. Today, we're going to talk about our wedding night. Now get your head on straight. Get your mind up out the gutter because we're not going that far. However, we will talk about some of the things that,
You don't know how far we're going.
Oh, he might be ready to do the deep dive. I'm not going with him.
No, we're not.
I'm gonna stay on the edge of the pool, okay?
Okay.
But but we will talk about that today. It seems to be kind of a taboo thing, just among Christians in general, and it really shouldn't be. Right. It really shouldn't be something that you wait to talk about, like, after the wedding night. You know what I mean? Or even like the day before. Like, it needs to be something that you prayerfully consider. And that's why we did Before Your Wedding, because it was such a great opportunity for us to talk about things that perhaps you wouldn't talk about on your own or wouldn't even think to talk about. Right. That book was really good at presenting certain topics that seem to be taboo, but really should be the main things we talk about. Yeah. And so we loved doing that because it helped us get to know each other really well. Even and especially in that way, mentally, before we got to know each other in that way. Yeah. Physically. And there's just so many things that happen in your mind and in your heart that a lot of people don't even realize are happening because no one's asked, Yeah. People have ideas about what it'll be like. They'll have, some people are just plumb scared, just terrified. Yeah. And some people are like, they've got all these expectations and all these forecasts built into their brain, and then they get there and it's not what they were expecting. And that has a whole bunch of implications. And so we're just going to talk about it a little bit and see what comes out of it. It shouldn't be too long of a conversation, but hopefully it helps you, and it's a good conversation. So yeah, I'm going to turn it over to you, babe, because I feel like you have some things that you want to say about it.
Well, okay. So first of all, I think just telling a little bit of our story would be good. Like you said, we don't have to go into detail. Right. But yeah. First of all, your boy did not do great on booking the hotel.
Oh my gosh, I was wondering if you were going to say something about this. What's crazy is that I found out from my mom she had already booked like a honeymoon suite for us at the hotel where everybody else was staying. Yeah. Where we had our rooms blocked, and all we had to do was just go to the desk and say we have a room reserved. And
what?
Yeah. I don't remember that. She was like, why didn't you guys just use the reservation that was part of the block? And I was like, I'm pretty sure I didn't know that existed. And she was like, I told you. And I was like, I don't remember that. So she told you? Did she tell you?
She probably did. But I'm sure there was like a financial issue.
Yeah, we were concerned about paying for it probably. So yeah. And we shouldn't have been, because you booked it the night before, which...
Because there was like a conference in town, so all the hotels were...
Yeah, there was something going on, and everything was booked, but we already had a room reserved and didn't know. So we booked... You booked... We booked...
Extended Stay America.
It was horrible.
It was not... Don't say that.
It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely grungy. Yeah. It was definitely like... Why is this where we're spending our wedding night? Yeah. Like the hotel where we had a room was really nice. I had stayed there the night before with the girls.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a really nice hotel.
Whatever.
With like marble floors and this is crazy, these beautiful beds and all this stuff. That is funny.
Yeah, so the setting wasn't the best.
No.
But anyway, okay, so
we booked an Extended Stay America, like across the bridge. So it's like 15, 20 minutes away. Mm-hmm. But after the wedding, we talked about this. After the wedding, we drove away.
It started raining.
And it started raining right away. Yeah. And in true wedding couple fashion, neither one of us had really eaten. Right. Because we had a concert as part of the wedding, right? We had friends come and sing some of the songs from our playlists that we had curated over the course of our relationship. And they did a phenomenal job. It was great. And during the concert, we were like jamming, when everybody was supposed to be eating.
But they were not eating. They were coming up and talking to us.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
They were not understanding that it was like concert time, everybody eat and be entertained kind of thing. And people were just taking their liberties and coming up to us, talking to us. It's like, I don't understand why people don't have that etiquette in a wedding. Like, you're not supposed to be talking to them right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that. You're very aware and you're going to do it anyway because you think you're special, which is interesting because everybody's special. But like, why is violating a boundary only reserved for people who think they're special?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you should just respect the boundary and that will make you'll still be special. Anyway, people were interrupting us.
But that concert was really great. I mean,
it was so great. We had some heavy hitters in there.
Heavy hitters there.
Yeah, the Broadway performer. We had your brother, my sister, my other brother. There's a lot of great performances. Your grandmother, good Lord. And your family sang a song that your mom wrote specifically for the wedding. Yeah. It was just so beautiful. And your mom is a songwriter, okay? She's a writer. And so that was just really beautiful. But we didn't eat. Yeah. Like, I was mad because I had specific things on my plate that I really wanted to eat. I had specific things like a drink that I ordered that I wanted to drink, and I didn't get to do any of that. And I was kind of salty about that. But we didn't eat. And so the first thing we did when we left the wedding, it was raining. We went to my favorite pizza place.
Yes, we did. Yes.
And we got a pizza that we didn't eat. We ate like a slice or two each, and there was still like a bunch of it left when we checked out of the hotel. But we got a pizza. We recorded a video while we were waiting for the pizza to get done. And we just kind of sat there just basking in all the things that the Lord had done for us. Yeah. And it was really cool. Yep. And yeah.
But see, what's cool about you is you weren't like too upset about the hotel situation. Like,
no, I wasn't. I was just happy to be
with you. You're chill. You're just chill, which I really appreciate. Man, yeah, because you could have been upset about that. But honestly, I'll say this. If you'd been upset about it, I would have understood if you were upset about that. But also, I don't think we'd be married if you're the kind of person who got upset about those types of things. Oh. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, because, I don't know, sometimes we major in minor things, Yeah. Mountains out of molehills, and you just don't do that, which I appreciate. So, yeah, the most important thing was that we were together, and we've always been aligned on those most important things, which is cool. Yeah. So we were together, and it was a little grungy, but yeah, so
that's a funny word.
Okay, so without going into any detail, I'll just ask this one question about our experience, and then let's just shift it more like general to, what are the lessons about, how do people approach the wedding night, and what are some of the issues that people face during a wedding night, and the honeymoon, and how to, possibly address some of those things. Yeah. So we'll go there, but I'm just curious, scale of 1 to 10, did the wedding night live up to your expectations?
Scale of 1 to 10. First of all, I tried really hard not to have expectations. Yeah. So if I did, they were pretty low. You know what I mean? Because I just wanted it to be what it was. I didn't want to be like, well, it needs to be this and it needs to be that. The only expectation that I really had was that we would dedicate that portion of our lives, that aspect of our lives as a married couple, to the Lord. That was really the only expectation that I had. I was like, I really want this to happen. And we had talked about it extensively previously, so you were on the same page with me. It wasn't like, something that I wanted that you weren't aware of or that you weren't on board with. And that was like my one expectation. And I think I just thought maybe the room would be nicer, but but other than that, I didn't really have any expectations. I was just like, whatever. When you're getting married and people counsel you about the wedding night, they'll say like, don't put too much pressure on yourself or each other. Like, You're probably going to be super tired.
Mm-hmm.
You have the rest of your life to consummate. Like, if you don't, it's fine. Just go to sleep. If you're tired, just go to sleep, you know? And that took a lot of pressure off too, because it's just like, oh yeah, we have the rest of our lives. We can just like enjoy sleeping in the same bed. That's exciting. And so I didn't really have like, oh, well, this is going to happen or that's going to happen. The only thing I really wanted to happen was that we would dedicate that part of our lives to the Lord. And so when it comes to the scale of 1 to 10, meeting the expectations, I would say 8. And that's just because of the room.
No way.
The room was kind of rough.
Yeah.
But
yeah. All right, 2 things. Were you nervous?
little,
Mm-hmm.
not very. But I was just nervous because I was like wondering what you were going to think of me, you know? And I'm very confident, or I was at least at that time. So I was just like, yeah, I mean, it's going to be great. But, yeah, I think at the time I was just like a little nervous about what you would think or whatever. It helped that you didn't really have a baseline for what I was supposed to look like, you know? I mean, you'd seen women in bathing suits, but it was helpful that I was the first person that you were going to see that way. So that was helpful. I wasn't really nervous. I know you love me, so I wasn't worried.
Yeah.
You did an excellent job of making me very confident, very, what's the word? Very secure in you loving me and that you wouldn't stop because of something superficial. So I was cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't very nervous. I was a tiny bit nervous.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to be happy.
Yeah.
Were you nervous?
A little bit for the same reasons, I think. You know, I think for the man in a sexual relationship, at least for me, but I think for most men, their sexual drive is typically higher than the woman, typically. And that can lead to some insecurity in initiating, because you don't want to come across as the hormonal man, you know, or whatever. Like, you don't want to come across that way, like you know what I'm saying? Like, so that, I think there was part of me, you know, and still sometimes like I'm like, I don't want to be that way, you know? So yeah, so I think that was definitely there. It's like, okay, we haven't really, you know, this is the expectation. We talked about it, you know, ahead of time.
We had some very, very extensive conversations about it.
But it's like, but when it came down to the moment, it's like, is she tired? Does she just want to go to bed? You know?
Because I got ready for bed before you.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Yeah. It took forever. Because I had a lot of things I had to take off in the bathroom. I had you unzip me. And then I went to the bathroom. I had to take my dress off. I had to like do all these things. But you had told me that you wanted to unzip my dress. Like, you wanted to help me. I remember that. So I was like, okay, you can help me. And then I went in the bathroom and I had to like take off all that makeup because I had so much layers. And then, you know, it was just a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I was trying to move quickly, but yeah, it was a lot. So you were just like sitting out there. What were you doing while I was in there?
I don't know. Probably organizing clothes or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, I'd say for me, yeah, I mean, honeymoon was a 10 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Wedding night, I think, I don't know, probably an 8. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, probably an 8. Yeah. So interesting. Yeah. So yeah, so that's really interesting. So I think, I guess, well, actually, I wanted to come back on one thing. I said there were 2 things. One of the things was, the other thing was, you said you were confident then, but not confident now.
Well, you know, mom bod and all the things.
Yeah.
But you do pretty good at making me feel lovable all the time.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Not 'cause you
But
are.
I literally, like, I was telling someone recently, I have a little, like, body dysmorphia because it's just, like, I've always been able to look at something and know if it fit me. Even if
Yeah.
I didn't, like, I didn't have to take it into the dressing room and try it on. You know what I mean? I would
Mhm.
always be able to just be like, yep, you know, I knew my sizes, things like that. And now I just don't. And I think I'll get back to that, but that's just not where I am right now. And so my body is kind of hard to live in, just not knowing from day to day, like if I'm going to be able to fit something that I used to fit or if I have to, you know. So it's a lot, but yeah.
Yeah.
That confidence took a hit,
Yeah.
but I think it happens a lot with women after they have children and all the things.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I had to mourn my old body, like knowing that I'll never have that again.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was hard for a little while, but I like myself regardless. Like I've always liked myself, you know,
Which
so
is such a blessing.
it was helpful. I've always found a way to like whatever body I'm living in at the moment. So
that's a blessing. Well, I like yourself too.
Thanks, babe. I like yourself.
All right. So, what are some of the things that you think we did that made our wedding night successful?
We allowed ourselves to take the pressure off of ourselves and each other. I remember you said you had a friend that took you aside and was like, hey, you need to just understand that real women do not look like the women on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, just release those expectations because that's not what you're going to get. And I'm really grateful that he did that because I don't look like, never have looked like the women on TV. You know what I mean? And so I think releasing those expectations and just like leaving ourselves open to experience each other and not like preconceived notions or anything that we thought we might experience based on our limited views and our pre-indoctrination from television, and you know what I mean. It was really, I think that was something that was very helpful, was just to release those expectations and allow the Lord to help us in that way and just help us accept each other for who we really are. And that was helpful. I think one of the main things that we did, that we agreed to do, which was part of my expectations that I talked about, was that we knelt down on the side of our bed in that dingy hotel room.
Dingy's crazy.
That's the word. It wasn't grungy. It was dingy. It was clean. It was just, you know, it doesn't have the sparkle of new that a lot of places sometimes have. And we knelt down by that bed. We held hands and we dedicated our intimate relationship to the Lord.
Yeah.
That is something I can never regret that we did. Because we've never known a time that the Lord was not present in our intimate life. And that is, I don't know that a lot of people can say that. A lot of people don't want to say it.
Right.
So that's one thing that helps. And I mean, we could talk about it a little bit more later, but I just, I remember when that idea came to me and I ran it past a few other single young women and they laughed at me.
Yeah. What's that about, man?
I don't know. I think as the church, as followers of Christ, as people who love God, one thing that we have done among many others is we have turned the subject of sex, the subject of intimacy, we have turned that over to the enemy. He owns it.
That and a lot of things.
A lot of things. But that is one of the things that he dominates, that we have in our minds. And part of it is so that we'll remain pure. We look at it as something dirty.
Right.
And so when the page turns and you're finally able to do it with your spouse, you still have the mindset that you had to keep in order to stay away from it.
Yeah.
which is that it's evil, that it's ugly, that it's disgusting, and that it is not something that honors God.
Right.
And that is a crock of bull. That is the enemy. The enemy has truly tricked us out of one of the most powerful aspects of worship that you can practice in your relationship.
Yeah.
And so people just, that's one aspect of their lives that people they don't welcome the Lord into that aspect of their lives.
Yeah.
He stands in their mind, he stands at the bedroom door waiting for them to let him back in when they're done.
I stand at the door and knock.
Yeah. He's not welcome into that area of our lives because we really don't internalize that he made it and that it honors him when it is done in the right parameters.
Yeah.
Which in a lot of ways means that our marriage beds end up belonging to the God of this world and not the King of Kings.
That's interesting.
And we're okay with that. And there's a lot of things that happen in the marriage bed, and we use that scripture, the marriage bed is undefiled, for an excuse to do whatever we want. Because then if we welcome the Lord into that area of our lives, then it means that he might have some parameters for us that we aren't willing to keep.
Right.
We can keep that we can keep that part of our lives as our own, and we can practice idolatry in that area and never have to turn it over to the Lord. If we don't welcome him in that space, then it belongs to us. And if it belongs to us, then it doesn't belong to God. And if it doesn't belong to God, it belongs to somebody.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the ways that the enemy has tricked us out of a very, very powerful aspect of worship and relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I was on TikTok and I saw it was this funny video about how the girl thinks she's going to act when she gets married. And she's like, baby, I know we about to have a time and I'm nervous, you know? So she's acting silly or whatever. The video's gotten like almost 1 million views. And, I commented on it and I said, when we got married, my husband and I knelt beside the bed and welcomed the Lord into that part of our relationship too. And someone else responded like, oh, that's so beautiful. And a few other people were like, that's good, but like, I'm afraid I'd be like thinking of the Lord while doing it and it feels wrong. Somebody responded to her and said, right, like, I'm having a great time with my husband, but like, I don't want to think about God while doing it. And it just makes me wonder who we think God really is. What do we think he thinks about sex? Like, he created it. Why is it that we are so afraid to welcome him into that aspect of our lives?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we think he doesn't want to be there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What are you thinking over there?
Oh, wow. On that topic, there's a lot of bad teaching around it.
Yeah.
For instance, the teaching that sex is bad. That's not a good teaching.
No. But I think it's what people think they need to tell us.
To scare
us
young people away from doing
out of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But it creates I think we'd be better to lead with truth. Love and truth rather than fear and truth. So that's interesting. And to the point of like, God is part of the sexual experience. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Just purely for this reason, like, the woman is a portal from heaven to earth. Like, literally think about it. What other human brings one of God's children into the earth? Like, it's literally like the woman's body is literally a portal. And so if a man and a woman are engaged in intimacy where it would spark the flames of conception, it's a overlap of heaven and earth. It's a holy sacrament.
Mm.
And but I mean, I get it. I get those people what they're saying, like, you don't want an observer in your room. Well, he's there anyway. He sees everything. And I guarantee you he does not view sex the same way you do or that I do with our carnal minds. And it's pure, it's holy, it's maybe a good word is innocent even, in his mind, in his eyes. Like, he's not, he's not lusting in that moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think you'd have to just really change your paradigm to allow for this. But it is holy, and it needs to be holy. And if you haven't given up the marriage bed or your intimacy to the God of this world, if it's not the King of Kings, then there is a middle ground, and that would be your own personal gratification. And that is also a God. That's also an altar. And I get it. I think sexual intimacy is ultimately selfless. It's supposed to be. That's one of the best things I also learned from one of my friends. Is he said it'll go so much better if you pay attention to her needs, and treat it as service to your wife. And so when I have that mentality, when I have that heart, it goes so much better, and I feel the Lord in it. But I'll admit, like, it's not always the easiest thing to be considering Him in the moment.
Yeah.
And we haven't always, and we don't always, but that part was dedicated, Yeah. And it always has been. And I think there's a lot of good reason for that, because you're right. We've just kind of given it up to Satan. So, yeah. So I had a few things. I dealt with a little bit of guilt, purity culture.
Yeah. Talk about that, because I've talked to women recently who struggled with, how is this okay now that I've signed a couple of papers? I signed some paperwork, I said a few words, and now the thing that I have kept myself away from my entire life is not only okay, but I should enjoy it.
Yeah.
So how do you make that transition?
Mm-hmm.
Was it difficult for you? What were some of the thoughts that came to you after having engaged in the act of sexual intimacy? What were some of the things that occurred to you after the fact?
I mean, guilt, there's some guilt and shame. Like, this is still wrong. I have to almost repent of this, because that's what you would have had to do 2 days earlier.
Right.
Yeah. So like you said, like, what has shifted? So there's a big paradigm shift and a heart shift that has to take place to where it becomes okay. And I know a lot of people, especially women, struggle with this. Men do as well, but women, and it can become a very significant barrier to sexual intimacy.
Yeah.
And there are others as well.
It makes them dread it.
Oh yeah.
Some people actually have like literal physical reaction to the mental barriers that they have to get over or get past in order to even enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, I've known a few people where it's just been absolutely painful for them because they can't get their body to relax.
Yeah. 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 So I think one of the things that we did that I think that really helped with all of this was appropriate education beforehand and appropriate conversation beforehand. A lot of people think that the subject of sex should be off limits between a couple in the days and the weeks before the wedding. But especially during those days and the weeks before the wedding, nothing could be further from the truth. So again, I'm super grateful for that book, Before Your Wedding, that helped us to have those conversations very honestly. We'll talk through all of it. So it was quite natural for us to just transition into that part of our relationship. We'd been holding off for a long time, but there wasn't a lot of mystery or surprise because we talked through all those things. And so you have to be careful about what sources you listen to or read. Make sure that they are, reliable scientifically and spiritually. But it's super important, I think, that you get some education and have conversation beforehand. And also listen to other people's advice, but there are a lot of people who have bad advice and are operating from their own fears and will tell you of their experience that they had and they would love to talk about the negative parts of the experience. So it's really good to politely listen, but try to block out of those things if you can. But yeah, I would say conversation, education, super important, and making sure that the education is wholesome and factual.
Yeah.
Because you're not trying to open up doorways in your mind and your heart too soon. That would be fantastical, like fantasy, or inappropriate in any way. Because that's, and even after you're married, that's not really a thing. That shouldn't be a thing, in my opinion. We shouldn't be opening ourselves up to sources that are not wholesome. Just because we're married now doesn't mean we get to go watch all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Where I was like, well, I didn't do that before I was married, but now that I'm married, I get to watch sex scenes.
Right.
And it's like, okay,
yeah.
I don't know if that makes it okay, but you're not convicted, I guess. Whatever.
I have some good quotes from a great book I read called Between Husband and Wife.
Ooh, yes. Read
just
those
some
quotes.
Just some quotes, just some practical things about the honeymoon. Some things I highlighted. So I've got this is good. Couples shouldn't worry if they don't know everything about sex during their engagement and courtship. Frankly, they don't need to during engagement and courtship. But in the days and weeks leading up to the marriage, that's because if you do open up that doorway too soon in the engagement, it can be really hard to shut that. The mind, the brain, your mind is the most powerful sexual organism that you have in your body. It is a sexual organ. Like without the mind, none of the other stuff really matters, right? If your mind and your heart are not into it, then it's not going anywhere. So if you open your mind and heart too soon, it's hard. It starts going, So don't open that up too soon, but definitely do it in the days and weeks leading up to it. Then regarding the honeymoon and the wedding night, said this: remember that you are given your sexual capacities to bless your spouse, not for personal gratification alone. If a spirit of concern for the well-being of your spouse pervades your honeymoon, if you allow your body to be the instrument of joy for your spouse, you will both come away blessed. Allowing your body to be the instrument of joy for your spouse. Thought that was really beautiful wording.
That's lovely.
Right? Yeah. And then I said it before, although women possess an equal, if not greater, desire for emotional, social, and physical intimacy, they may not necessarily want sexual intercourse with the same intensity or frequency as men. So being sensitive to that on the wedding night, even, you really have to communicate on the wedding night. Because what if, especially if you haven't had communication ahead of time, but you should have, just like, in my opinion, like you should not be surprised by your potential fiance's response to your proposal. You shouldn't be shooting in the dark. You should know that they're going to say yes. Same principle on the wedding night. There shouldn't be a lot of surprises. You should have been able to talk through everything. So if your spouse is dealing with guilt or has concerns about pain or things of that nature, you need to communicate. You need to know those things ahead of time. The pain thing is you can't like really foresee that, but you need to communicate in the moment. Like, so again, especially for the man, make sure there's communication on the wedding night. I think that's really important. Have the conversation. Like, is she just way too tired? Are you both too tired? Just, okay, you don't take the pressure off and go for it another night or the next morning, So I think that's important. This was really interesting. Just something that I highlighted. Orgasm is largely a learned phenomenon for women and requires a strong feeling of safety in the relationship and the ability to relax. Men are microwaves, women are ovens. And we have to remember this. And it being a learned phenomenon for most women is really important. So again, that wedding night, the men, I'm just talking to the men, you need to temper your expectations. And I hope that a lot of this will be so much easier for both of you if you've talked about it beforehand, because that first time can be really formative for the relationship from that point forward. You can develop really positive associations with intimacy that continue to compound, or negative ones that can compound as well. And it can be hard to overcome. So I think the communication education ahead of that is really important. Let's see. There's one about, you mentioned about this, the spiritual part of it. This young woman in the book, she said, I've thought about the principle of listening to the spirit in order to discern what is right and wrong sexually. Unfortunately, I believe that far too many of us are not in tune with the Spirit of God enough to be able to hear its whisperings when we do something wrong, especially when we deal with something so emotional and hormonal as physical intimacy. Many of us do not even give thought to the Spirit in our sexual relationships. I feel very blessed that many of the intimate times I have shared with my husband have been of a spiritual nature. I have felt the Spirit of God testifying to me that what we were doing as a couple was right and proper. Sometimes we mislead our youth into thinking that anything that is sexual is evil. Again, back to your point, allowing the Spirit of God into the relationship, allowing yourself to be directed. The best times that we've had, the best intimacy we've had is when we were both in tune with the Lord and with each other's needs. And it was very guided, and I think that's can apply on the wedding night. But on the wedding night, you have to temper those expectations, because you're not going to get it right the first time. Just like an athlete, another quote, world-class athletes often comment that they perform their best when they let the game come to them, as opposed to trying to force their presence on the contest. It's no different with sexual intimacy. The experience should not be forced. And also, the experience must be practiced. Like, you're not going to get it right totally the first time. And of all the things I would say about our wedding night, I don't think we got it right the first time. That's okay. It's okay. There's time to practice together and to get better.
One of the virtues of waiting too, is because I like you.
Right.
And it didn't have anything to do with our physical intimacy. We knew that we had crazy chemistry. We knew that we were attracted to each other. We knew that part of our relationship would be amazing. We didn't really have to think about it that hard. We just were like, we knew, right? And we also knew that there was going to be some practice needed. That's why it was so great for us to get to know each other ahead of time and really know that we loved each other for different reasons that didn't have anything to do with physical, so that we could come to this part of our relationship and really look at it objectively and not have too many crazy expectations. We already knew we liked each other. We already knew that, all of this would take time for it to mesh and to meld together. We knew this stuff already. And that was really helpful. But it does help for you to already have a great rapport with the person you're with. Like, if intimacy, if the physical is removed from the equation, will you still like this person? Would you still want to spend every waking moment with them? Would you still want to be around them all the time? That's a really good gauge, because all of these things, all of this sexual stuff, it can be learned. It really, like, you can teach somebody what you like. You can teach someone how to touch you and how to, speak to you and how to, approach you, how to initiate all the things. Those things can be taught. And sometimes you don't know what you like. You gotta, trial and error. And there needs to be space for that as well.
Yeah.
See, I found a few quotes that I like.
Okay.
One is, holy sexuality is the marrying of souls, which I think we forget. We forget that very often. We think that it's only a physical interaction, and that's all we should be focused on. When if we realize that we are making a soul tie with the person that matters to us the most, then maybe we would want a little bit more spiritual insurance. Understanding that this is a spiritual thing that is happening. This is a divine act that is happening.
Right.
Why wouldn't you want the creator of the act to be involved? Why would you turn it over to a counterfeit? Wouldn't you want the Lord to be involved in something that is holy? You know, something that I think about it is that sex is worship. Physical intimacy is worship. And the bed is the altar. What is it that you want to present to God? What kind of offering do you want to present to God? Is this a Cain offering or an Abel offering? Do you want to be caught without a sacrifice at all? Because you've already given it to someone else or something else. You know what I mean? Like, if it's holy, then we need to make sure that we present it because it's his anyway. I don't know.
That's good. That's good.
Another one, I thought there's a few of them that I think they're just really interesting. This one is from Judaism. It says, one should know that sexual union is holy and pure when it is done as it should be, at the time it should be, and with proper intent. So there's a right way, there's a right time, and there's a right place.
Yeah.
And the wedding night is the perfect time to welcome the Lord into, and even before that, you know, we every now and then will rededicate that part of our life to the Lord. And there's another one that says, and this is from the Jewish perspective as well, sex is not only for the sake of total body orgasm or ecstasy, but also the purpose of conceiving the most advanced children on the planet. So when you think about how you're talking about a woman's body being a portal and ushering a being, one of God's children, into the earth, you know, the most advanced children on the planet, you know, just kind of cool to think of, you know, your marriage being the vehicle for the next prophets and the next world changers and the ultimate bridge builders, and like your marriage being a vehicle for the Lord bringing his will to fruition in the earth.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why you wouldn't want to dedicate that to the Lord.
Yeah.
Why you wouldn't want the best start possible with something like that. And also, just practically speaking, I mean, practically and spiritually, I guess, like, the Lord knows what you like. I mean, I already said this before, but in this particular context, the Lord knows what you like. And if the person you are with, this is the first time that y'all doing this, and you know, they don't necessarily know what you like, you know who does? The Lord. So why wouldn't you welcome the one who knows what you like into the act so that he can make sure that what you like gets communicated to that other person? Because the Holy Spirit, if he's involved, he absolutely can speak to you and to your spouse about what to do in the moment. And it doesn't have to be weird. And it doesn't have to be cringy either. I think a lot of this is like when people have a problem with welcoming the Lord into their intimacy, it's because they just have a problem with intimacy with the Lord in general. Yeah. Because it doesn't seem weird to people who engage in intimacy with the Lord on a regular basis. They don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
People that I've talked to about this who actually like, they're very serious about intimacy with the Lord. They're like, oh, that's a no-brainer. Obviously, you allow the Lord to minister to you in that moment. Because when the Lord is involved in the act, it is so much more enhanced.
Yeah.
You know? So, I don't know. Those are just some things. Oh, this one is cool. It says, touch is not empty. It contains all the elements of the universe. You know? And I think sex has been cheapened so much.
Yeah.
In our society and in the way that the world works right now, that it is really hard to see how God would even want to be involved. So
Yeah.
I get it. I'm not saying that I don't get it, but I also don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we must be transformed by the renewing of our minds in this area.
Yeah.
We're educated by Hollywood so much on this and other people's fears.
Mm-hmm.
And we scandalize it.
Mm-hmm.
We're embarrassed by it.
Yep.
Our puritanical society and upbringing in many ways has made it so taboo that when it's not taboo anymore, we still carry those attitudes into our intimate relationships. So this is really an area where we can experience freedom with the Lord. I think it's important. So our wedding night, I think it was beautiful. There are a lot of things we did in education and conversation that helped us prepare for that. And I would definitely encourage other people to do that. Also, don't expect it to be perfect the first night, and make sure you've communicated what your desires are. There's a growing movement of people who don't even put any pressure on that first night. They just wait till the next night when they have energy because the wedding was so draining, you know? So take that into consideration. What else? What other takeaways are there from our conversation today?
I don't know. Did you just say this, welcoming the Lord into that aspect of our relationship? That is something that has blessed us over and over and will bless you if you let it.
Yep.
Welcoming the Lord into the intimate part of your relationship. If you're already engaging in intimacy with the Lord individually, it stands to reason that welcoming him into your collective intimacy is going to be a lot more fruitful than if you would have excluded him.
Yep.
And that's not to say that it won't be enjoyable if you don't allow the Lord into that part of your relationship. But the question remains, why wouldn't you? And if the reason why you wouldn't is fear or embarrassment or shame or something that is not from the Lord, then you should probably examine what's underneath it. Why is it a thing you're afraid of? Why don't you want God to see you naked when he already does? Why do you want him standing outside of the door of your marriage chamber when he should be at least standing at the foot of the bed?
Yeah. Because
you're going to be engaging in worship no matter what. And we talk about how there are, the Lord purchases us with his blood, and it's like he's purchased a house that he's going to renovate so he can live there. But the thing about the Lord is that he's a gentleman, and he's not going to trespass our boundaries. He's not going to step over something. He's not going to overstep. He's not going to bang down a door. He's going to wait until you open it. So he is going to occupy the space you give him. If you give him the foyer, he will completely overhaul and completely rejuvenate that foyer. It'll be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. If you let him in the living room, same thing there. If you let him in the basement, same thing there. If you let him in all the other rooms in your life, in the kitchen, in the closets, why is the bedroom excluded from the place where he can come in and completely have his way? Don't you think he's capable of making that the most beautiful room in the house? That's the Holy of Holies. If your body is a temple, that bedroom is the Holy of Holies. And not having the Ark of the Covenant in there means there ain't no power. So welcoming God's power into your physical intimacy, I don't know, it just seems like a no-brainer to me. I hope that just having a conversation about this and you guys hearing our perspective on it helps you to see it from a different perspective. Like if you have issues with seeing this as something that is holy, as something that is right, as something that is made by God and can be used to worship him, then you should absolutely examine that. Absolutely examine it with the Lord and allow him to change your mind in that area. Because like I said, it will bless you if you let it. Will.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of people I know who have had a conversation about this say that as they let the Lord in it, that it becomes increasingly spiritual, that even as our bodies become less sensitive and less, as our bodies degenerate just a little bit, through time, that the experience becomes even more sweet because the emotional, the spiritual, and the mental components are stronger.
Yeah.
And that is always an important point, that there's not going to be a lot of physical intimacy unless you first have emotional, mental, and spiritual intimacy with that person.
That's so true. I mean, well, depends on how you define intimacy, right? Because if it's just the act, then there's plenty of that flying around.
But I would argue in that case that they have, at least temporarily, opened themselves up to emotional, mental, and spiritual
idolatry.
But idolatry, but also enjoyment. They've made themselves vulnerable in those areas so they can enjoy the experience. But then they close it off and it becomes painful. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of physical enjoyment to be had unless those other components are there in a marriage. But I think like I said, I think there's an argument for that. Anytime people are having pleasure in sex, it's because there's no pleasure in sex without the brain being involved.
Yeah.
And that's mental, it's emotional. There's a spiritual component to that. And so at least that's operating in some form. But there are higher forms of that to be had. There's higher enjoyment to be had in the purity and holiness of the marriage covenant and the way that God's ordained it. So, yeah.
Okay, I have one more quote. It's a secular quote.
Okay.
And it's a little bit critical of religion.
Oh.
But it's kind of along the lines of what we've been saying as far as like how we learn about sex in church and how it has severely stunted our ability to be able to like engage in true intimacy without shame after marriage. And it says sex is raw energy. It has to be transformed. And through transformation, there is transcendence. Rather than transforming it, religions have repressed it. And if you repress it, the natural outcome is a perverted human being.
Dang.
So being able to see this correctly is so pivotal. Being able to see this from the right perspective. It is energy. It is a drive.
Yes. Yes, the generative energy.
It is the drive to create.
Yep.
And if we do not reverence it for what it is, if we cheapen it, what we get is perversion.
Yeah.
And in church, because of the world's overuse and oversaturation of all things sexual, we have gone far left. We have decided that we are not going to talk about it, that we are not going to engage. We are not. It is unholy. It is evil. It is all of these things. And what ends up happening is that we allow other sources to teach our children what sex is. We have allowed other authorities to teach our members, our people, what sex is and what it's capable of and all these things. We have just, the enemy's completely overrun that area of life when it is the drive to create. What else is there besides that? It is such a huge aspect of our being, of our existence, and he owns it.
Yeah.
And that's not a coincidence. That's not happenstance that he has co-opted that he's completely taken it over.
Yeah.
And we've let him.
Yeah.
So I really just want a generation of married people to rise up and take that back, to say that this is something holy, something that the Lord has given us to aid him in creation, to aid him in bringing heaven to earth, to aid him in creating the environment that will make him comfortable to live here.
Mm-hmm.
I just want us to take it back.
Yeah.
And one of the main ways that we can do that is on wedding night. Declaring something that is already his for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
Even if it hasn't been up to that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know some people will feel guilt and shame behind that. Well, we didn't wait. So is it possible to consecrate something that we have already engaged in? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely possible.
Yes.
And you will gain so much from it. Yeah, I think it is possible for the Lord to consecrate something that maybe you hadn't consecrated to him previously.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, 100%.
He absolutely will.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
that's one of the meanings behind the marriage bed being undefiled.
Yeah.
I think that there is a protection from soul ties that you had with someone else, all different things. When you come together in covenant with the Lord and you welcome him into that covenant, it's a shield from anything else that is outside of that covenant.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't specifically broken covenants or specifically broken soul ties or anything like that, there is a way that the Lord makes that holy when you allow him to.
Yeah.
It's a protection for both spouses against anything that you might have engaged in previously.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know. These are, I just obviously have strong ideas about this, strong feelings, but
that's great.
Part of it comes from being laughed at when I talked about this. You know what I mean? I'm just I don't think that this is funny, because I think that it is something that is absolutely necessary. And why wouldn't you want to do that? Ugh. Anyway.
Amen.
Let's wrap up. But
well, no, thanks for all this conversation, babe. It's been really good. I love you. You're the best. If you guys are still watching, that means you are here. And it means that you might be looking forward to something that we do at the end of every episode.
Every single one.
Again, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. We appreciate your all support. The podcast. If you feel like donating, go to brettertogether.com/donate. We appreciate your financial contributions to help keep our bridge building ministry going. But we dare not leave you without a smile. So what do you have for the people, babe?
Me? I never do the joke. You want me to do the joke?
I flipped it.
Oh,
let's go. You got a joke for everybody today?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
Hold on. I have, because
Make it
of
clean.
you.
Make it clean.
Are you kidding? You with the vertical butt crack thing?
Oh my gosh.
Last episode.
Booty
are you
crack,
kidding me? I'm
butt.
sorry. Booty crack. Whatever. The vertical. Horizontal, vertical, whatever. That was crazy. So don't do that.
Wait, you got a joke for us though?
I do. I have a file of jokes because of you. I'm always sending you stuff.
All right, let's go.
Now I've got a few.
While we're waiting, I got you. But go ahead. All right, why do melons have weddings?
Why?
They can't elope. All right, go ahead. What's yours?
Okay, this one is pretty wholesome. It says, I once had a conversation with a dolphin. We just clicked.
That's pretty good. All right.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys. We appreciate y'all. See y'all next episode.
Go build the bridge.
Peace.